Alright, and we are back today with issue 2 of Warhammer 40K's Imperium Magazine. We got the new contents here. Sorry for the crackling again. The wrapper is going to be making that sound. One of the biggest differences here we see it's $13.95 for issue 2. It goes up from the $6.95 from issue 1. We didn't really talk about value in the previous episode, so today we'll talk about that a little bit. In issue 1 we got an HQ unit for Space Marines and Necrons, which is great value for $6.95 because each of those miniatures run you around $35 retail, and you get both included in that issue. Here they go up to the standard price of about $14 per issue, but there is still some great value in each of them. As we can see, some paintbrush, pot of paint, and some miniatures again. So let's open this one up and take a look at the contents here. And I again apologize for the crackling of the wrapper. I'll try to open it up to the side so the mic doesn't pick it up so much. There we go. Now here we've got 3 bases. We've got our sprue for 3 easy to build Necron warriors. Now these normally come, I believe, in a box of 10 Necron warriors, and they retail for maybe $50-$60, something like that. So 3 of them easy to build to supplement in the $14 price tag for the magazine itself. We get a Citadel starter brush. This probably run you about $5 if you were to purchase it alone. Decent tip on there. And then we get a pot of Rune Lord Brass base paint, which is essentially brass metallic color. I don't have this in my collection of paints, so I'll be using it. I do have other gold paints and some Vallejo paints that I use as well. So this is a nice addition because I don't have a specifically brassy kind of dark color like this. And this pot will probably run you about $4 as well. And then we have the issue here, and just feeling it, it's quite heftier than the issue 1. Issue 1 did include the small little scenario battle mat, a poster, a little fold out pamphlet to read about Space Marines and Necrons and that sort of thing. But the magazine itself was thinner, so this does provide more pages. I'm sure it's more of a read, more in depth about each of the factions and more stories and interesting things to read here. So that's a nice addition. Getting started painting. I see here there's some paint guides which have you painting Rune Lord Brass directly over the plastic, no priming. I guess if these are your very first miniatures, you may do that. But I'll be going ahead and priming all of them before I paint them. And I guess here there's some more tips for that, and then information for stories or a new mission scenario. I will say the binding on this issue, even though the first page is lifting a little bit, is much better than on the first issue. The first issue's binding kind of almost fully came apart when I opened it up, so that's something to be wary of if you're worried about the long-term durability of these issues. Unfortunately, they aren't great with the binding, but this one is better. I will be actually going for the binders that they're adding for these to keep them all together, put them up on the shelf, look nice. So that's something to keep in mind. And then here again it does say fight a new playthrough game, so that's nice as well, that it adds another little scenario, so that if you're learning, which I'm new to 9th edition, some of these little scenarios might be good to get familiar with 9th edition. But there you have it. This is what's included. We have our Necrons, easy to build. Very nice sculpts. I'm used to the old Necrons from when I used to play, where it still had the clear green acrylic rod for each of their Gauss rifles. So these with molded detail are nice. So I'll be snapping these up in a moment and we'll take a closer look. And again, each of the three bases are Runelord brass and brush. So I still think, at least at this stage, with the first few issues, the value is there for Imperium Magazine, and we'll find out how much value continues to come from these magazines as new issues arrive. So let's get these push fit together and take a closer look at them, and then we'll see you off. And we're back with all the contents of this week's issue. We have our 3 Necron warriors all built up. We have the issue itself here. When going through this issue, actually, much like the previous issue, the pages fell off. Again, I'm always going to complain about that. I don't know if the binders that are included in the subscription are included in the price, or if you have to pay any extra. I'm probably going to pay the little bit of extra because as I said a little earlier in this video, I want to keep them all together, put them up on the shelf, and I really don't like that they're falling apart. If they were bound very well, I would probably second guess the binders and keep them as is up on the shelf, but since they do fall apart so easily, and I got a comment on my previous video on issue 1 saying that they're meant to break apart for the binders. I guess it's a give and take with that. The binders are probably very nice, they hold them nice together and it's easier to flip through them, but at the same time, if you wanted to maybe not go with the binders, save a little bit of money, or you're not interested in the binders and you wanted the magazines for themselves, I still believe that they should have been bound a little bit better. But aside from that little rant about the binding, we all know my thoughts on it. I wish it was a bit better. We can take a look at what was included. We have our Citadel starter brush. It's just a regular starter brush. And it does have quite a nice point to it. So I'll be giving this a try. I have several brushes, so this isn't that necessary, but again, as this is geared to very new players, a pot of paint and a paintbrush is always useful to go along with your few starter minis. Again, we have our Runelord brass, so let's go ahead and just zoom into the miniatures here, take a closer look. They're your standard push fit Necron warriors. I haven't used the multi-part Necron kit, the modern one. As I did say, the last ones that I used were the ones with the clear green acrylic rods. So these are quite the departure. These are taller, they look cooler, they're less uniform. I believe this one here, the third one in the center, let's take a look, does have damage on its head where the living metal is taking its time to rebuild his skull or whatever the case may be. So that's very interesting that they included on these miniatures and added those details just so that they're a little different. They're pockmarked, they're dented, they're damaged, and they look more creepy, you know, with their heads twisted to the side and what have you, compared to the very uniform previous ones that, you know, if you wanted battle damage and things like that, you'd have to go ahead and do it yourself. So that's nice to see in these sculpts. One thing that I did make a mistake of looking at the photo here in the back on the magazine itself and on the miniatures themselves, I believe on the first and third I confused their left arms, so I have a few bent wrists on these. Once they're painted up, that won't be very noticeable, and that's not to say that Games Workshop did a bad job with the instructions or anything like that. I was just a little bit careless and wasn't paying attention to the numbering on the pieces, so that's kind of my fault. But again, they're very easy push fit, but the arms are a little spindly. Attaching them to the Gauss rifle and the torso, you do have to be quite careful. Just like I said in the previous video with the HQs, before I prime them up, I'm probably going to get some plastic cement and just ensure that they're bonded well, and ensure that some of the weak points have strong bonds. But if you were to paint them directly after push fitting them, these are still fine. I would just say be a bit careful with the arms and moving around, and sticking the legs onto the base, as the limbs are very thin and spindly and you can bend or break them quite easily. But aside from that, they look great. The sculpts are great. I think it's good value. I'd imagine 3 Necron warriors will run you at least $10. The pot of paint is at least $3-4, and I believe the starter brushes are $4 or $5 aside from the magazine itself. So the value is there. It looks like it's decent value. Of course, I believe issue 1 for these first few early issues is going to have the most value. 2 HQ models that will run you about $30 each. It's going to be your best bet for $7. So if you can pick that up, you're interested in the 2 HQs, I would suggest them. If you're filling out your Necron army, or your Space Marine army, or anything like that, these are good pickups because they do add additional units. I have some old miniatures from my old Necrons. I don't believe I'm going to be trying to revive those, so I'm just going to go ahead and be starting Necrons with these, and I'm very happy with the new sculpts. They're very nice, so no complaints there. So the value looks good, and I'm excited to see what else comes from Imperium Magazine and how it continues. I've got the subscription coming. I'm going to be doing videos on it every week, so next week we'll have issue 3, and then we'll start next month's issues. Again, thank you for watching. Appreciate it. Please like and subscribe. Have a good one.